March 17th, 1995, 2:34 a.m., the Portland Hospital, London. The private wing was silent except for the soft hum of medical equipment and the occasional footstep of a nurse making her rounds. In room 347, Diana sat on the edge of the hospital bed, her hands trembling as she stared at the ultrasound image in her lap. The grainy black and white photo showed what she had suspected for weeks but refused to believe. Until this moment, she was pregnant. But this wasn't 1982, when the world had celebrated her pregnancy with William. This wasn't 1984, when Harry's arrival had brought joy to a troubled marriage. This was 1995. She was separated from Charles. The divorce proceedings were underway, and the father of this child was not her husband. Dr. Sarah Mitchell sat beside her, speaking in hushed tones. You're approximately 10 weeks along. Everything appears healthy. But Diana, given the circumstances, we need to discuss. No one can know, Diana interrupted, her voice barely a whisper. No one, not Charles, not the palace, not anyone. Dr. Mitchell nodded slowly. She had treated enough high-profile patients to understand the weight of secrecy. But what she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, as she sat in that dim hospital room offering comfort, was that someone already knew. Someone had been watching, and the machinery of the palace was already in motion to make this pregnancy disappear. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, because to understand what happened to Diana's secret child, to understand the conspiracy that would span continents and cost lives, we have to go back to the summer when Diana fell in love for the last time, back to when she dared to believe she could have happiness, even if the world would never accept it. Back to when she met James, July 3rd, 1994, 8:47 p.m., a private estate in the Cotswolds. Diana stood on the terrace of the country house, watching the sunset paint the rolling hills in shades of gold and amber. She had come to this weekend, gathering at the invitation of a friend, a rare escape from the suffocating attention of London, from the endless scrutiny, from the weight of being the most photographed woman in the world. Beautiful, isn't it? A voice said beside her. She turned to see a man in his early 40s, tall with graying temples and kind eyes. He held 2 glasses of champagne, offering her one. I'm James, he said with a slight smile. James Harding, cardiac surgeon. And yes, I know who you are, but I promise not to make it awkward. Diana laughed. A genuine laugh that felt foreign after so many months of practiced smiles. That's refreshing. Most people either fawn or freeze. Well, I save lives for a living. Tends to put celebrity in perspective. They talked through sunset into darkness, about medicine and charity work, about the pressure of public life and the relief of private moments, about loss. His wife had died of cancer 2 years earlier, and loneliness, the kind that persists even in crowded rooms. Diana felt something shift inside her. Not the desperate infatuation of her youth, but something quieter, recognition, understanding, the possibility of being seen as a woman, not a princess. What she didn't know was that 50 yards away, hidden in the tree line, a photographer with a telephoto lens was documenting everything. Not a paparazzi. This photographer was on someone's payroll, and the images would never see a newspaper. They would go into a file, stamped classified, stored in a vault at MI5 headquarters. Because the palace had been watching Diana since the separation. Every movement, every relationship, every potential scandal. And James Harding, though he seemed like a kind widower making conversation, had just become a person of interest. September 14th, 1994, 11:23 p.m. James's London flat. Diana lay in the darkness beside James, listening to his breathing steady into sleep. They had been seeing each other for 2 months now. Secret meetings, careful planning, a romance conducted in shadows. She knew it couldn't last. She knew the palace would find out eventually. But for now, in these stolen hours, she allowed herself to be happy. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from her private secretary. Call me urgent. Diana slipped out of bed and went to the bathroom, closing the door before dialing. Diana? Patrick's voice was tight with stress. We have a problem. Someone knows about Dr. Harding. I received a call today from a palace official. They asked pointed questions about your schedule, about medical consultations. They're watching you." Diana's chest tightened. "Oh, what are they going to do?" "I don't know, but you need to be careful, very careful. Whatever this is, they're not going to let it become public." Diana hung up and stared at her reflection in the mirror. She looked happy. For the first time in years, she looked genuinely happy. And that, she realized, was exactly what terrified them. The next morning, James received a visitor at his hospital, a man in a dark suit who claimed to be from hospital administration but whose credentials didn't quite check out. The man suggested, politely but firmly, that Dr. Harding might want to reconsider certain personal associations that could damage his professional reputation. James told Diana about the visit that evening. They sat in his car in a parking garage, the engine off, their breath fogging the windows. "They're threatening me," James said quietly. "Not directly, but the message was clear. Stay away from you or my career suffers." Diana felt tears burn her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I should have known this would happen. I ruin everything I touch." James took her hand. "You don't ruin anything." "They do. The system does. But Diana, I need to know, are you willing to fight for this? Because if you are, I am too." Diana looked at him, this good man who had stumbled into her complicated life, and she made a decision that would change everything. "Yes," she whispered, "I'm willing to fight." What neither of them knew was that the palace wasn't making idle threats. Plans were already being drawn up. Contingencies were being discussed, in rooms where such matters were handled quietly, efficiently, and with absolute deniability. Because Diana, Princess of Wales, could not be allowed to have a child with a commoner, not while she was still technically married, not while she was still the mother of the future king. Such a scandal would be catastrophic. It had to be prevented by any means necessary. December 31st, 1994, 11:58 p.m., Kensington Palace. Diana stood at her bedroom window, watching fireworks bloom over London, welcoming 1995. Behind her, on the bed, lay a positive pregnancy test. She had taken it that afternoon, hands shaking, already knowing the result, but needing to see the confirmation. She was pregnant. 8 weeks, maybe 9, and she had no idea what to do. She hadn't told James yet, hadn't told anyone, because once she spoke the words aloud, they would become real. And reality, in her experience, had a way of becoming dangerous. Her phone rang. It was James, calling from a New Year's party he'd felt obligated to attend. "Happy New Year," he said warmly. "I miss you. I wish you were here." "I miss you too," Diana said, her voice breaking slightly. "Diana, what's wrong?" She wanted to tell him, wanted to share this moment, this terrifying, wonderful secret. But something stopped her. An instinct, a warning. Nothing, just emotional. New year, new possibilities, you know. They talked for a few more minutes before hanging up. Diana set the phone down and picked up the pregnancy test, holding it in the glow of the city lights. She would tell James soon. She would figure this out. They would find a way. But that night, as London celebrated, Diana felt a creeping dread that had nothing to do with the pregnancy itself and everything to do with what would happen when the palace found out. What she didn't know, what she couldn't have known, was that they already suspected. That her medical appointments, though conducted with discretion, had been noted. That her behavior, her schedule changes, her morning sickness, poorly disguised as flu, had been observed and reported. And that a plan was already in motion. March 17th, 1995, 2:45 a.m., the Portland Hospital. We return to this moment. To Diana, sitting in that hospital room, ultrasound image in her lap, Dr. Mitchell offering quiet reassurance. "I can help you," Dr. Mitchell said carefully. "Whatever you decide. But time is a factor. If you're going to make a choice, it needs to be soon." Diana looked up sharply. "I'm not terminating this pregnancy. I understand. But then we need to plan. The press will notice eventually. Your schedule, your appearance. They can't know," Diana repeated. "If the palace finds out, I don't know what they'll do, but it won't be good." Dr. Mitchell hesitated. "Diana, I have to ask. Does the father know?" Diana shook her head. "Not yet. I'll tell him soon. But first I need to know what my options are. Can I carry this baby without anyone knowing? Is that even possible? Dr. Mitchell thought for a long moment. Theoretically, yes. You're not showing yet. We could adjust your wardrobe. Be strategic about photographs. Conduct all your prenatal care privately. But Diana, you're one of the most watched women in the world. At some point, it will become obvious. How long do I have? 4 months. Maybe 5 if we're very careful. After that, no amount of clever clothing will hide it. Diana did the math. July, maybe August. She would have until summer to figure this out. To tell James, to decide if they would run, if they would face the palace's wrath together, if there was any way to protect this child from the storm that was coming. She thanked Dr. Mitchell and left the hospital through a private exit, her bodyguard waiting with the car. As they drove through empty London streets, Diana stared out the window and tried to imagine a future where this could work out, where she could have this baby, this love, this life. But deep down, beneath the hope and determination, she knew the truth. The palace would never allow it. April 22nd, 1995, 7:18 p.m., James's flat. Diana sat on the couch, James beside her, his hand in hers. She had just told him about the pregnancy, about her fears, about the impossible situation they were in. James was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady but strained. "A baby, our baby." He looked at her with wonder and terror in equal measure. "Diana, do you understand what this means? They'll destroy us. Both of us. I know. They'll take my career. They'll smear your reputation. They'll make sure this child grows up in scandal and shadow. I know. So what do we do?" Diana took a deep breath. "We disappear. We leave the country. Take the baby somewhere they can't reach us. South America, Australia, somewhere far away where we can start over." James stared at her. "You would really do that? Leave William and Harry?" The question hit Diana like a physical blow. Her boys, how could she leave her boys? But how could she stay and let the palace destroy this child before it was even born? "I don't know," she whispered. "I don't know what to do. But I know I can't terminate this pregnancy, and I can't let them take this baby from me." "What if," James said slowly, "what if there was another option? What if we carried the pregnancy in secret and when the time came, we placed the baby somewhere safe, with people who could raise them away from all this?" Diana pulled her hand away. "You're talking about giving up our child. I'm talking about keeping them safe. Diana, if the palace finds out, they won't just separate you from this baby. They'll make sure the child never has a normal life. Every moment will be scrutiny, scandal, pain. But if we find the right people we trust, the baby could grow up free, happy, normal." Diana stood and walked to the window. Outside, London glittered with lights and possibilities and lies. She thought about William and Harry growing up in the gilded cage of royal life, thought about her own childhood, the pressure and expectations and loss of self. Could she give this child what she'd never had? A life of freedom? "I need time," she said. "I need to think." James nodded. "Whatever you decide, I'm with you. All the way." But as Diana drove home that night, she couldn't shake the feeling that time was something she didn't have, that forces were already moving against her, closing in, preparing to make decisions on her behalf. And she was right. May 8th, 1995, 10:32 a.m., MI5 headquarters, London. In a conference room on the 4th floor, 3 men sat around a table reviewing a dossier stamped "Classified, eyes only." "She's 4 months along," the first man said. "Dr. Mitchell at Portland Hospital confirmed it. The father is James Harding, the cardiac surgeon. They've been conducting the affair with reasonable discretion, but it's only a matter of time before press gets wind." The second man, older with silver hair, frowned. "Options? We could leak it, control the narrative, frame it as a mental breakdown, poor judgment, whatever plays best." "No," the third man said firmly. He was younger but clearly in charge. "Leaking creates too many variables. We need containment. Total containment. You're suggesting—" "I'm suggesting we handle this the way we've handled similar situations in the past, quietly, definitively. The princess carries to term under medical supervision, in a secure location. The baby is delivered and immediately placed with a vetted family outside the UK, closed adoption, no records, no trail. And if she refuses? The young man's expression didn't change. She won't refuse. Not once she understands what's at stake. Her son's futures, her own safety, the stability of the monarchy. She'll make the right choice. When do we approach her? Soon, but carefully. We can't risk her running. She's desperate enough to try something foolish. The meeting concluded. The dossier was returned to its locked file, and the machinery of power continued its work, grinding forward with the weight of centuries behind it, crushing anything that stood in its way, including a pregnant princess who dared to believe she could choose her own path. June 14th, 1995, 3:47 p.m., Kensington Palace. Diana's private secretary knocked on her study door. "Ma'am, there's a gentleman here to see you. He says it's urgent. About a private matter." Diana felt her stomach drop. She was 5 months pregnant now, still hiding it successfully, behind carefully chosen clothing and strategic public appearances. But she'd known this moment would come. "Send him in." The man who entered was unremarkable, middle-aged, well-dressed, with the bland pleasantness of a career bureaucrat. He introduced himself as Robert Chambers from Government Liaison Services, a vague title that meant everything and nothing. "Your Royal Highness, thank you for seeing me. I'll be direct. We're aware of your condition. We're aware of Dr. Harding, and we're here to discuss a solution that protects everyone involved." Diana forced herself to remain calm. "I don't know what you're talking about. Ma'am, please. We're not here to judge or threaten. We're here to help. You're in an impossible situation. We understand that. But there's a way through this that ensures your dignity, your son's futures, and the well-being of the child." "What are you proposing?" "A private facility, medical care of the highest standard, complete confidentiality. You would deliver in August, and the baby would be placed with a loving family who understands the sensitivity of the situation. You could return to your life. No scandal, no press, no damage to William and Harry." Diana stood, fury rising. "You want me to give up my baby?" "We want you to consider what's best for everyone, including the child. Do you really want this baby to grow up as a scandal? As proof of your betrayal of the royal family? Think about what the press will do. Think about what it will do to William and Harry, to see their mother dragged through the mud. Get out." "Ma'am, get out of my home now." Robert Chambers stood calmly. "You have 2 weeks to think about it. After that, we'll be forced to take alternative measures. For your own protection, of course." He left, and Diana collapsed into a chair, shaking. They knew, the palace knew, and they weren't going to give her a choice. She called James immediately. "We need to run, now, tonight. They know about the baby, and they're not going to let me keep it." But James's response wasn't what she expected. "Diana, maybe we should listen to what they're offering." Silence. "What did you say?" "I've been thinking about this for weeks, about what kind of life this child would have. The scrutiny, the scandal, maybe giving the baby to a good family where they can grow up normal." "James, they got to you. What did they say? What did they threaten you with?" "Nothing." "Nobody threatened me. I'm being realistic. Diana, I love you, but I can't watch you destroy your life and your son's lives for this." Diana hung up. Her hands were shaking so badly she could barely hold the phone. Everyone was against her. The palace, the government, even James. She was alone. July 29th, 1995, 11:47 p.m., a private clinic in Scotland. Diana hadn't run. She tried to think of escape plans, of countries with no extradition, of ways to protect this baby. But every path led to worse outcomes. Scandal that would haunt William and Harry forever. A life on the run, her child growing up hunted. And the terrible realization that James was right. What kind of life would this be? So she had accepted the arrangement. The private clinic in Scotland. The carefully vetted adoptive family, wealthy, stable, overseas. The promise that the baby would be loved and protected and given every advantage, just without the Spencer or Windsor name attached. She had 2 weeks left until her due date. 2 weeks to say goodbye to this child she would never hold, never know, never watch grow up. Dr. Mitchell visited daily, monitoring the pregnancy, offering quiet support. "You're doing the right thing," she would say. "The brave thing." But Diana didn't feel brave. She felt broken. Late one night, unable to sleep, Diana wrote a letter to the child she was about to lose. "My darling, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't know if you'll ever understand why I made this choice. But I need you to know that I loved you. From the moment I knew you existed, I loved you with everything I had. I wanted to keep you. I wanted to raise you and protect you and watch you grow. But the world I live in doesn't allow for such simple dreams. They would have destroyed you with their scrutiny. They would have used you as a weapon against me and your brothers. So I'm giving you something I never had: freedom. You'll grow up away from cameras and scandal and the weight of crowns. You'll be able to be whoever you want to be. I hope you'll forgive me someday. I hope you'll understand that this choice, this terrible choice, was an act of love. Always and forever, your mother." She sealed the letter and gave it to Dr. Mitchell with instructions to include it in the adoption paperwork, to be given to the child when they turned 18. August 12, 1995, 4:23 a.m., the private clinic. The labor was long and difficult. Diana, exhausted and heartbroken, finally delivered at dawn. A girl, perfect and tiny and already crying with fierce determination. For one moment, one brief, shining moment, they placed the baby in Diana's arms. She looked down at her daughter's face, memorizing every feature. The dark hair, the small hands reaching toward nothing, the eyes that would never know her. "I'm sorry," Diana whispered. "I'm so sorry." And then they took her. Gently but firmly, the nurse lifted the baby from Diana's arms and carried her away. Diana heard herself making sounds she didn't recognize, animal sounds of grief and loss. Dr. Mitchell was there, holding her hand. "She's going to a wonderful family. They'll love her. She'll have a good life." But Diana couldn't hear through her own sobbing. She had lost a child. Not to death, but to something worse, to choice. To the machinery of power that ground up anyone who dared to love freely. The next day, Diana signed the papers. The adoption was finalized. The baby, given the name Sophie by her new parents, was on a plane to New Zealand, where she would grow up, knowing nothing of palaces or princesses, or mothers who loved them enough to let them go. Diana returned to London 2 weeks later. She resumed her public duties. She smiled for cameras. She did everything expected of her, but something had broken inside her. A light had gone out, and it would never quite turn back on. August 31st, 1997, Paris. 2 years later, Diana would die in a tunnel in Paris. The world would mourn. Conspiracy theories would swirl. William and Harry would walk behind her coffin, their grief broadcast to millions. But almost no one knew about Sophie, the girl growing up in Auckland. The daughter who would turn 18 in 2013 and receive a letter from a mother she never knew. The secret that had been buried so deep that even most palace insiders didn't know it existed. Almost no one. Dr. Mitchell knew. She kept a copy of Diana's letter hidden in her home safe. And when Diana died, when the conspiracy theories began about what the palace might have done to silence her, Dr. Mitchell wondered if the baby had been part of it, if Diana's growing instability in those final months had been related to the grief she carried, if the secret had somehow contributed to her death. In 2019, Dr. Mitchell would die of cancer. Her daughter, going through her mother's papers, would find the letter, would find the sealed envelope marked for Sophie Harper, Auckland, New Zealand, to be opened on her 18th birthday. August 12, 2013. The envelope had never been sent. The daughter would spend months tracking down Sophie Harper, would finally find her, a young woman of 24, working as a teacher, married, happy, completely unaware of who she really was. And she would face an impossible decision. Should she tell Sophie the truth? Should she reveal that Diana, Princess of Wales, was her birth mother? That she had 2 half-brothers who didn't know she existed? Or should she let the secret die? Let Sophie continue her happy, normal life, free from the weight of a crown she never wanted? Some secrets once buried are better left in the ground. But some truths demand to be told. Today, Sophie Harper still doesn't know. She's 29 now, living in New Zealand, teaching primary school children, occasionally watching documentaries about Princess Diana with the same distant interest any member of the public might have. She doesn't know that her dark hair and blue eyes match Diana's, that her smile, caught in certain light, is eerily familiar to anyone who loved the people's princess. She doesn't know about the letter waiting in a solicitor's office in London, held by Dr. Mitchell's daughter, who still hasn't decided what to do with the truth. And she doesn't know that William and Harry, now fathers themselves, might welcome a sister if they knew she existed, or that the revelation could still shake the monarchy to its foundations. Some secrets are too big to keep, but some are too dangerous to tell. This is one of them. So here we stand at the end of this story, having walked through one of Diana's most painful secrets. A child born out of love and lost to circumstance. A mother's grief carried in silence. A truth buried so deep that even decades later it remains hidden. What do you think happened to Sophie? Should she be told the truth about her birth mother? Would you want to know if you were in her place? And what would happen to the monarchy if this secret was finally revealed? Share your thoughts in the comments. This is where we honor Diana's memory by refusing to forget the price she paid for loving freely, for trying to live authentically in a system that demanded perfect compliance. If this story moved you, please subscribe. There are more untold stories waiting, stories about the choices Diana made, the sacrifices she endured, the love she gave, even when the world demanded she give it up. Together, we'll make sure all her truths are finally told. Together, we'll remember what they tried to make us forget.